Well, now that we've got that, what do you think are some of the new things that Aaron has added to his agenda since then for his talking rants at the beginning? Is there anything missing?
Yeah. How many MSPs can succeed with automation without asking for help and asking questions? 14, 17, 4, 0, 0.
Thank you. And also anybody can drop the flow link in. That's coming up really soon. I don't know if there's anybody on marketing on that wants to like give an update about timing. Okay, great. Yeah, get in there. Don't make Aaron sad by not being able to come. And yeah, I think we're good to take it away, Ashe. So now, yeah, let's, now I'm going to say, hey, George, anything you want to say for the community?
Yeah, Flow is mere weeks away now, guys. So as you see there, Olivia's posted about that in the chat. If you're new to Open Mic, if you're watching this, if you're someone who just still hasn't registered yet, please do. It's going to be an amazing event. We've got speakers announced. There's even some folks here on the call that I see that are going to be presenting as well. So lots of great content. We want to see you in person there. So get yourself to Florida at the end of June for Flow 2025. The other thing I'll call out as well is some of you guys may have seen on LinkedIn, Elliot Rees over in the UK posting about some Rewst swag that he got recently, and that was off the back of what I called out last week, which is a little booking link to make some fun videos with me. So if you give me 15 minutes of your time and have a cool, simple workflow to share, something that we can use and post and share within the community, you might get a little Rewst gift package. So I'll go ahead and stick my booking link in the chat and grab a time that works for you. Show me what you're working on. Share something that you think other new folks to Rewst could benefit from, a tip or a trick. Yeah, that would be good. Otherwise, that's it for me this week, keeping it short and sweet. Ashe, I will kick it back to you, and I'll drop this link in the chat now.
Thank you, George. All right, so we are going to go through our internal updates now, starting with Danial.
Hey, everybody. I'm back. All right. Okay, so we have some fun new features for this week. The first big one is related to a new integration. So we've released TD Synnex StreamOne Ion. This is a another subscription and CSP management integration. Sorry, I got distracted for a second there. This is more oriented towards the non-North America environments. StreamOne Stellar is the North American TD Synnex version, or majority North American, and StreamOne Ion is a highly requested integration for a lot of our EU and Australia and elsewhere partners. We also introduced a new trigger for Freshdesk for newly created tickets. This is a polling trigger, so we go and look to Freshdesk for new tickets every X amount of time. And then as opposed to a webhook trigger, we are investigating the webhook trigger abilities for Freshdesk. But yeah, I'll show that in a second. We've migrated a few of the proof point actions that were pretty slow. We've moved them to a new API that improved the performance. We've also done some changes to Cove to auto-redact some sensitive fields that are coming in. Again, some bug fixes and chores for this week. And we're still working on a few of these items. GraphQL is still in beta. We have the workflow page and workflow results page search and filter. There's one more item that we found in our user testing that we want to make a change for, and it is, I think, in progress right now or starting on Monday or Tuesday, I guess, with Memorial Day. And then the workflow executions dashboard widget, a bunch of work to complete that is, I believe, going to be in one of our upcoming releases, and hopefully that will be out there soon as well. So I'll quickly just go to, because it's a polling trigger, I'm going to quickly create a new ticket. Let's go. Question, status open is fine. And then see what else it asked me to do. Okay, let's go. Don't all email me at once. There we go. So I created a ticket. I have a workflow here that uses the Freshdesk trigger. So we should see in a little bit that there's going to be another execution. In the meantime, I will go and show how to set up StreamOne Ion. So you can see here, all I did is follow these steps here. What you need is a account ID and your refresh token. So if I go into users here, I can find a user, and when you click edit on them, you can see some token information. I can revoke or refresh that, or you can create. And then if I go into account information, so you need that refresh token here. And then if I go into the account information for that user, I can grab the account ID and then plug both of those in here. And once you save that configuration, you'll see that your test is successful. And yeah, from there, you can actually run some actions. So I'll just test this quickly. I haven't seen that polling trigger fire yet, but it should happen quite shortly. Yeah, so you can see I just pulled all the products here, and it pulled back a long list of products that are available in StreamOne Ion. You'll see that there's only one new workflow execution here. I'm still going to wait for a couple seconds, and I'll keep you guys updated when we see that other execution. But sometimes it takes a couple minutes with polling triggers. It's not instant. So yeah, that is all I have for today. I'll send you guys a screenshot when my workflow is fired off again. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Daniel.
You.
All right.
I know you're meant to do that.
Now we are going to jump over to JP.
All right. In the marketplace, a few weeks ago, we did some bug fixes for the Acronis backup agent deployment crate, and it's one of our older crates by far. So we did a facelift on it, gave it some modern flair as far as how we're designing workflows, using our sub workflow, like function-based sub workflows. So we did that. Quite a few bug fixes that we addressed throughout the week. And coming soon, we have a refactor of the technician toolbox for ConnectWise pods. So that will be up and coming, hopefully released next week. And that, I think, is it for the marketplace.
Thank you. All right. Clea, now it is your turn to shine.
All right, thanks everyone. I'll go ahead and pop a link in the chat so you have access to all the things. As always, I'm going to start with shout outs. So big shout outs to Basil, Samantha, Nick, Daniel, Donovan, Brent, Ryan, Amy, Kevin, David, Joey, and Jackie for passing the Rewst Foundation certification, and our very own Jen from Rewst. And shout outs to Colton, Alex, Daniel, Samantha, David, Josh, and Jackie for passing the Clean Automation certification. Be sure to get your shout out at a future open mic by taking those exams in Clea University. No major updates in Clea University, but as always, if you have any feedback, feel free to email us at cleu@rewst.io. And in terms of documentation, we have a few new pages for you: a time savings report crate, Microsoft user offboarding crate, TD Synnex StreamOne Ion integration, and some updated guidance for our ConnectWise PSA integration. That is it. So thank you, Ashe.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, so now we are jumping into our demos. We've got 3 demos, so you guys have got plenty of time. No rush on spending the time though. Any time that we have left over, we are going to have some Q&A, and I think that there's probably some interesting discussions that have been going on that we could probably have together. So Let's start off. Didn't respond. Hunter, are you on the call? You might only have 2 demos. And in which case, all right, let's jump over to Owen.
Perfect. Let me get my screen pulled up here.
For a second, I thought you were going to stay silent just to try and like pique my anxiety.
Not intentionally. Let's see. Perfect. So we are continuing the trend of robbing and duplicating. Second week in a row, we are doing this. I took some inspiration again from SIP, so I appreciate the SIP team working on some really awesome features. But this one I actually took a step further and improved upon kind of what they were doing. As of right now, there isn't a great way to monitor role changes. I don't know about any endpoints that we could hit, but there's a simple way to take the roles within your tenant and the members of each of those roles. And I'm sorry, Rewst, I am using org variables to store some of this information instead of an actual database, but I wanted to share this out to the community as well, because it's such a simple workflow that I feel like people could benefit from. So what we do is we go and we hit the role endpoint with all the members, keep track of the roles that you currently have. If you have already ran this workflow, it will come and update your organization variables. The coolest part is, and the change that I've made to what SIP has done, is this will also alert you on when roles have been removed. So if you have some administrator roles assigned to somebody that you want to be alerted on, this is some sample markdown that I've provided on the roles, who's been added or removed from each of those. And it can really be customized to whatever you need. So if you only want to monitor certain roles like global administrator or user administrator, you can just filter that down when you're grabbing those roles. And I'll throw a link in the chat to the JSON so that you guys can use this in your own environments. But yeah, I provided some HTML, text, and Markdown fields for you to use at your leisure for all kinds of alerting endpoints that you might want to hit, if it's a ticket, email, or Teams message, things like that. Any questions? Or I feel like you guys that saw last week, it's pretty simple if you want to import this and get this going. So use it however you'd like, and feel free to tag me if you have questions.
Thank you so much, Owen. Jonathan, do you want to share your cookies? We should like bake some just as a team building episode. I call my roles. All right. Okay, it doesn't look like there's any other questions. Let's jump over to Brian.
Hi, good afternoon. Let me get my screen up here. I want to share a mostly finished, at least version 1 work in progress workflow that I was already working on, but kind of got inspired to show up based on some discussion earlier today in the Discord about, onboarding new organizations. I think there was a lot of really good discussion around that could be brought forward in terms of, automating our own internal tasks of, how do we make that onboarding, make sure that it goes exactly how it needs to, and then cutting that time out of it, because if you are on the ownership side, while onboarding is absolutely necessary, every minute that you spend on it is almost longer than it should be, because you want to be to the point where you're just billing them for your services, not necessarily the project to get them on. getting that closed up. So what I did is I built out a fairly simple, straightforward workflow so far. I'll zoom in a little bit so you can see it. But it's built off of a form. So my drive to what the way that we onboard our clients is I go ahead and set up the CSP integration into Rewst first, and then pick a client and start running through all of these things. It's got a whole bunch of different option generators. It's going to map out the various integrations that we use, and then some of the other optional ones and some optional identity settings. So this is borrowed fairly heavily from the form that Rewst created, which is the get and set org variables crate, that does all of the like onboarding basics and things like that, just really pared down for exactly what my purposes were. Used a lot of the same kind of, conditional variables. One thing as I walk through this, in case you didn't know, your integration, most of them, other than the CSP integration with Microsoft, they're just system org variables. So if you set the org variable through your workflow, the mapping is done for you. You might have to do a little refresh button on the refetch options on the integration itself to see that it's there. But Rewst doesn't care about seeing it. It just knows that the org variable is set and runs with it. So we pick these out. I built, option generators around these. Each of these will do some like name mapping. So let's see if I can kind of show off a little bit of how that works. As soon as I pick the client, it starts running through. Oh no, I think I turned something off and it broke because it should have fetched and found. Yep, I turned something off. I'll have to go look at why that is. But what this will do then is it takes all this information and dumps it in, and then I do a little bit of like resetting with the inputs to sanitize what they are. And then I've got a sub workflow that will set each and all of those org variables, which does not just the onboarding, but also does my integration mapping. And then, what I'll also then be able to do is set some additional like tagging and things like that. And then it creates a note on the service project ticket summarizing everything that Rewst did to onboard the company to itself. Things that why this is kind of more of a work in progress and was based off of the discussion from earlier is, all right, now that I've got it onboarded into Rewst, I mean, there's a whole lot more that I could touch with this, right? Like, unfortunately, I ran into a pretty big road stopping incident with being able to onboard them to say like ConnectWise RMM because the API is non-existent. And so far, I haven't been able to F12 my way to a session token that is reliable to be able to like create new organizations and all that. I'm hopeful that if you're a ConnectWise RMM user, keep beating up on your account managers because we need a real API for it. As much as I would prefer to just move to a different product, that's not my decision. So I just have to support what it is. But the goal is then to continue to build out some of the building blocks of onboarding to all the rest of the system. So like creating them in SentinelOne, creating them in DefenseX, creating the client in all of these things. And then as it creates those, then I can start removing those options from the form and build it in a more reverse way that it creates them and then grabs the returned object and maps that then within Rewst to simplify some things down. Why I wanted to show this off is, I don't know, maybe open up some to the floor. Like what are some of the things that maybe I haven't mentioned or haven't really been discussed in Discord? What else would you want to also add to something like this that would onboard your client more thoroughly to be able to get them into your system?
That's kind of a question for everyone, right?
Mm-hmm.
People, if you could talk in chat, you can like come up.
Hey, Brian, it's a very interesting topic and I don't know how much like this looks very linear, and I don't know if you looked back at which products are integrated, or if you could just build this so that it's sort of dynamic and looks back at which products you have integrated. But what would be really interesting would be to sort of have like a division of these are the things that can get onboarded automatically, and these are the ones that can't. The ones that can't get like ticket notes or Teams links or whatever to get those things done manually, but to still let the workflow go through. And once some of the RMM stuff, like whether it's Screen Connect or AnyBot or whatever, is done, not just onboarding the customer to the product, but onboarding the devices to the product and doing some type of network discovery or like prioritizing these things so that one thing can be the leader of the pack to get all of the devices and endpoints and such visible first, and then proceed down the road of all the other ones. That sounds like almost a pipe dream, right? Like put all the ducks in the right row, or the goots or the geets or the clucks or the chickens or whatever, and put them in the right row, and then sort of dynamically build it out. And the things that can't succeed or don't succeed, those become the anomalies and the separated work for the techs to not do busy work and have it all sort of self-reconcile. These are the products the customer bought. You kick off whatever AnyBot does for you or whatever deployment mechanisms you're using, but to have a workflow like this that as part of the org onboarding does as many of those other pieces as possible in the right order to achieve the least amount of work for technicians to do by hand.
Yeah, I think, Jimberry, you're kind of right on with where I envision this to eventually build to, like right now. So like what I'm showing up here is really just it's just the Jinja that parses out all of those form variables and turns them into the various org variables, the system, the secret, general, and all those things that it then stores to do all the integration mapping. But over time, as I'm able to build out those additional building blocks for, are we going to include RMM and SentinelOne, DefenseX, so on and so forth of those products that we utilize, and being able to create those, that's where I'm going to be able to step back and instead of having it match the organization, I'll do a checkbox for, okay, this needs to be onboarded. Ideally, I'd like to even roll back the like super far dream is to have a workflow that's triggered based on converting the client from a prospect in ConnectWise PSA to an active client, and then this workflow would pick up on the company types and agreement types, and then just run and know everything that needs to be created. Because then ideally from there, we then turn to, like internally, we use a lot of Intune and Autopilot, and I know a lot of other people use things like AnyBot to do this stuff too, where from there then we just onboard the device to either Intune or AnyBot, and then let either of those things then just automatically install the correct thing with the right endpoint. All of then it manages the device from that perspective. So that's kind of the like you said, but it's about getting to the minimum viable. The minimum viable right now is I can take care of the things that I have to do as the automation person, since sometimes I kind of have to fight kicking and screaming people to understand that if I automate their menial tasks, there's still plenty of work for them to do. They just have to use their brain to do it. They just can't fill their timesheet up with click this button, fill this out here, do this thing here kind of stuff. But they actually get to do like meaningful work in terms of digging into problems or being proactive and those kinds of things. So that's where I'm continuing to push and doing it. And I think you're exactly right that the goal is to turn from version 1 of form driven to a version 2-ish that it'll do all that setup then and map everything in, and then the version, who knows what is going to be this thing just runs when X happens and nobody has to worry about anything other than making sure that we get this onboarded to Intune and the agents all install.
Yeah.
There were some answers that came through to your question as you guys were talking. I'm just going to see if any of this is relevant here. Andrew said in answer to you, all the things, DNS filtering, checkpoint, Connect Secure, Huntress, S1, and MDE, ITG. Stuart said he missed the question, but he said that he couldn't find a way to attach an image to the IT Glue company and asked if you found a way to make that happen. And then Ryan commented about OpenDNS.
No, and I think that's IT Glue is probably going to be a lot like where I'm at with ConnectWise RMM, right? These are products that have an API by name, although IT Glue is fully more functional than RMM's in name only API. There's still so much of it that is not available to the API to where you kind of almost have to go like put your hacker hat on and hit that F12 button and use the front end API, unfortunately, if you want to be able to automate it. Or if you're not comfortable doing it, then the automation just creates a checklist for those last few things that you're not able to automate. That's a valid option too, right? As much as we would love to be able to automate all the things, if the end result of the automation is you've automated 95-ish% and there's a really thorough step-by-step checklist of what needs to happen for the rest, then I mean that's also a successfully built automation, right? Like you've automated everything that can be without pushing beyond your comfort level of what it is that you're willing to do to try to make a system bend to your will. Some of those clients kind of get touchy about this. Like earlier today, I was attempting to see if maybe my ConnectWise RMM API token would let me do some things that are not documented, but the instant I would try to pull up the Apollo client and DevTools to see what their GraphQL was doing, it was force logging me out of ConnectWise SSO. So I hit a limitation in terms of what ConnectWise was going to allow me to even attempt to do at that point, and that'll be kind of the end of where I was at on that one.
Cool. I'm trying to figure out whether some of this is just like discourse and chat or whether they were things to talk about. Ryan commented on the Huntress API. Looks like you can install. There's some interesting conversation. Andrew makes a point about how you don't need to because you can install the variable via your RMM. They use N-Central and the install is universal if you define it from there, which auto creates the bucket in Huntress. And then Chris said something similar about how IT Glue has a sync task with ConnectWise PSA that can create orgs, and then all you have to do is go back and figure out which org is mapped to the IT Glue org. Not similar from like the topic, but like it brings up a good point around intentional process design where it's like you might not need to re-engineer something in one place if you can do something here and then it already has the functionality to go do it, and then all you have to do is wait for that and then pick up where you go. I've seen some really interesting perspectives on that. I don't know if anybody wants to chime in.
Yeah, I think, this kind of goes hand in hand with, Ashe, and you and I were having this conversation the other day that, sometimes the tool that we all love may not be the right tool for this. Some of these things are handled very natively, like being able to have a native integration between ConnectWise PSA and IT Glue, or your PSA and IT Glue that'll automatically create those new organizations in IT Glue when that the company matches your syncing criteria. That can alleviate your need to even build that. You might have to build in some delays to your workflow or try to trigger a new sync as part of your workflow to ensure that organization does get created and you can map it. But I mean, that's absolutely true. There are other ways that you can force some of that creation. I think the Huntress one, we don't use it, but that's to that point is a very similar discussion that it looks like you can, without having to post to the API, you can create organizations by having the installer do it. If I'm understanding what you're saying, but there are other ways that you can go about this necessarily than either posting to an API endpoint or hitting that F12 key and trying to use a session token to emulate browser actions. That's a lot of it. Boy, this noob versus no-op argument in the comments is really distracting, guys. It's great.
And now we see the genius of my design too, because we've got our next presenter. Somebody who, if I asked beforehand if they wanted to present, they would never say yes. But now that we have time, we are going to get Danial. Dan.
The
He's
other
our man.
Daniel.
The favorite one. Let's be real. Come on.
So I'm going to share my screen really quick, and hopefully I share the right one. Okay, yeah. So I got the right screen. So lately I've been working on what's essentially end-to-end test or unit tests for workflows. So I guess I'll start out with what I started with first. So that was onboarding, and then that kind of developed into onboarding and offboarding. So essentially, I'll just kind of go over the workflow. So we're using a product called Testmo to upload the results to. So this is just starting the test, and then you'll notice this run onboard main. That doesn't have any inputs because that's essentially just acting as a wrapper workflow to run the onboard. I'm basically pulling in some user data from an API that I wrote a while back, and then feeding that into the onboarding workflow. Once that runs, then it determines whether or not it was successful based on the output of the workflow. And then as a double check, I go through and I verify that the IDs that I expect are there. And this can run in a bunch of different configurations. So I have it looking for certain things based on what the configuration is set to. Usually it's set to a hybrid configuration, so both on-prem and Azure. But basically that will report back, and then it will go to run offboard main, which essentially will do the same thing, but it will push the IDs from the previous workflow into it so we can offboard the user. And kind of the same idea here. It's going through and determining if it was successful, and then it's also checking to see that things that I expect are there. From there, then it goes back up, and then we calculate the runtime. And basically, to calculate the runtime, I'm basically just doing start epoch here, and then end epoch here. And then Testmo expects it to be in microseconds, if I remember correctly. So I'm basically just taking the epochs and then subtracting them from each other, and then multiplying that by 100,000, if I remember correctly. I'm really bad with numbers. But either way, from there, then I go through and I build the test results. So basically what I'm doing here, along with the success output and checking if the IDs were there, I also check the sub-automation logs for anything that's not reporting a past status. And then I'm doing the same for offboarding. And then I ultimately have a data alias that determines the success of both of these to determine whether it passed or failed. And then it just builds out the object as it would be expected within Testmo. And then I also include things like the user ID for both on-prem and off-prem if it's there. And then the execution result for the onboarding workflow and the offboarding workflow, and then the execution result for the end-to-end test. And that ultimately ends up looking like this. So you can see here, these are the things that I'm manually providing to it, or not really manual, but the things I'm building out purposely. And then inside of here, we can see the stuff that's coming from the automation logs. I don't know if I had, oh, I do have a failed run. So here you can see the failures being reported back. And in this case, I knew this was going to fail because there was a bad configuration in the environment. But along with that, once I finished that, then I went through and built one for the PowerShell sub workflows. So essentially the idea is the same. We create the test mode test, and then we go through and we check to see what RMMs we want to test. And there's some org variables to enable or disable things, and that's largely because this is replicating to our other environments, so that we can easily test in all environments after a deployment. But basically, this is here just in case like an RMM isn't installed or something like that, so we can easily switch it on or off. But it will go through test automate, test Datto, CW control, Ninja, ME, Kaseya, VSA, VSAX, enable, Agent Smith, SuperOps, and then it will upload all the results. Now, what I did with this, because I care that the workflow ran, but I care more about what it returned. So in this case, the PowerShell script that I'm passing essentially is just having it return a string. So I check to see that the string is everything looks good here. And that basically repeats all the way through, and kind of the same idea. Inside the test result in test mode, we get passed, 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 passed. The execution result link, passed, skipped, passed, 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 skipped. That's basically it. I plan on eventually documenting some of like the methods that I used for this, and then just building more for more workflows, because this is super useful if I'm making a change that could potentially break something. I can easily just go into here, hit test, let it run, and then check to see if it fails or not before I go and push it out to the templates and everything like that. So that's my presentation. Anyone have any
Danial.
questions?
I'm not sure if this was John. Was this question for Daniel about have you run the E2E test on your E2E test? When are you positive the errors is in the workflow being tested and not the test harness?
So I actually haven't done that yet. I haven't written test for the end-to-end tests.
Is there any other
Dan's a slacker.
questions? How have you not written tests for your tests of your tests yet? That's like an exhibit meme waiting to happen there.
Yeah.
Who watches The Watchmen? That's right, Jordan. We've got 20 minutes left, so questions, come off, mute, ask them in the chat. If you got something that you wanted to demo, if you messaged me somewhere and said you did, chime in. Let me know.
Kelvin had a good question. Why should MSPs care about testing?
Why do you feel like we need to care?
So I mean, I can give my logic behind it. I'm lazy and I really don't like filling out forms. So I just built it mainly to run things quickly. Now, why should somebody who's using Rewst care? This enables us to do two things. It enables us to test the workflow easier and make sure that it's running successfully end to end after a change. But then also it allows the devs to smoke test in each environment after a deployment, which ultimately helps with stability.
Trey, when you say Bitbucket get support for Rewst when, what are your use cases on that? What are you looking for?
Boy. I'm a little different. I've got a team of 10 Rewst engineers at this point. No, I think 12 now. I forget. We keep buying more MSPs and that number keeps growing. Anyway, you all know this. Rewst doesn't have like drafts or any real way for you to kind of merge or commit something really cleanly beyond, just publish it and hope nothing breaks, which we've got workarounds for that, and we've got different sandbox environments and QA and all that, but it doesn't really follow a real dev pipeline, which is what we run most of the team off of. We use Jira a lot to kind of handle what's going on and prioritizing things. And then ideally, I'd love to connect Jira to Bitbucket because we're already a Jira shop and just align Rewst to that so we can actually kind of build a true dev cycle versus just the kind of YOLO, hope it doesn't completely break everything when we push it out of QA and into production, because a lot of the time we can test it perfectly in our production environments, but with going on now 20 MSPs underneath our umbrella, everybody's a little unique, and the Rock probably knows this better than everybody. You're not going to nail it on the first try, and you're going to find some wild edge case you've never encountered before, and it's really hard to push a change and merge some different commits together in Rewst because you really can't collaborate the same way that you could in other platforms.
I love that you got Pizza saying that he would love to get a JSON Git set up for version control, and he had his little emoji there. So now that it's like one of those things where it's like, don't contaminate the place, because once you put an idea there, it's like once you put an idea in his brain, probably.
Yeah,
noodle
I
it.
talked to Jesse about it a bit because like I'll admit we're weird, we're big, and I've got a big team and a venture capital money, so we can do a little bit more. And most folks probably won't need the functionality, but I'm sure like the Rock would probably love it because I'm willing to bet the production process behind some of the marketplace stuff could be cleaner, could be stored a little better, could be automated versus some of the limitations of Rewst today.
Yeah. Daniel,
So-
do you? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just curious about so you started it with Bitbucket. So
Yeah.
just more generally, you're looking for any sort of like are you tied to Bitbucket? Like, is there anything that you could or have tried in like using the GitHub integration, or is it Bitbucket?
I'm somewhat tied to Bitbucket just because
The Jira
when
ecosystem.
when you're in the ecosystem, it's a little hard to get out of, especially at our size. It's just a change for one MSP is hard. When you've got 20, it's a pain in the ass to tell all 20 with. I mean, we've got 50,000 endpoints underneath our umbrella, so telling everybody to change, it's not quick, and it's
Speaking
not
about what
simple.
we. Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead,
Not
Ashe.
simple. No, I was just gonna. It just made me think. It might be a silly thing to say, but we were just talking about like connecting things that already connect, and then I thought, is there a Bitbucket GitHub integration that exists out there somewhere that you could like push to GitHub and then it does the Bitbucket stuff?
Theoretically, sure. The integrations between the two, like if I had to go to GitHub for the Rewst stuff, my team wouldn't completely kill me because that's not a big deal. The rest of the devs for like Power BI and whatnot probably wouldn't be super happy, but that's okay. They can pound sand as far as I'm concerned. I care about my team.
Yeah, I guess what I'm maybe trying to tease out a little bit is I'm curious because with mentioning Bitbucket, there were a couple things that came to mind. Is this for versioning or is this for backup or what? Like if in an ideal world, what would that? Oh, yes, okay. So in an ideal world, would versioning be through like an external application or a third-party application, or would you prefer that like Rewst had like a production version? And then as you make changes, that version is not in production yet. There's like a like test version, or like let's say your production version is version 1 and you're now working on version 1.01 kind of thing. Is there like a preference on the third party for a specific reason?
To be honest, it's really both. Because I'm gonna have, let's just be honest, I will have a little better RBAC inside of Bitbucket, right? It's got some better controls in there. I can I can do a lot more with who's got access to what, where Rewst, the RBAC, is kind of there, but it's not to the same degree, right? From a versioning production versus development, right? Yes, it would be super handy to have within Rewst, but I would still want to be able to push the non-production version back to something like Bitbucket. That way we can say, hey, we've got this person committing and this person committing, and realistically, I'd really like to be able to merge the two. That probably gets a little complicated because long term, I don't want to have to assign a single dev working on something. But right now we kind of are forced to, because with Rewst's design, there's really no collaboration that you can do cleanly when you're developing a workflow. It's all, someone makes the change, publish it. Okay, now you can hop in and make your changes. But if you try to merge them, shit's not going to go well.
That makes
Pipe
sense.
dreams,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
Pipe dream
Yeah.
for a later date, but that's where I see something a la Bitbucket coming in, because realistically, if I can take some modular sub workflows and those are committed to a bigger wrapper, then we're okay. But I still want those little modular pieces backed up in Bitbucket with the versioning, so it talks to Jira, so I can have kind of it's not a for real dev pipeline, but close enough.
Gotcha. Okay. That makes sense to me. Okay. I may have some. I'll reach out to you, Trey. I have some further questions and some ideas I wanted to bounce off you. So thank you.
Yeah. Go ahead. No worries.
Alex, you asked a question, and maybe you could clarify. You said, how can you use nukes? You look at me being cooperative to like print the items that the automation is looping through. Do you mean like if you were doing like a with items to like add things to a list, or do you mean like going through a sub workflow? You can come on chat if you want.
Yeah. Basically, I just want to like see what the so I'm looping through a JSON object, and I just want to see kind of like what the output is. Yeah, I was just having like some issues with like looping through it, and I'm like trying to see like, okay, what is actually the result, but then when I look at the execution summary, it's not like the results are kind of empty, and I'm just using like no ops. So yeah, I don't know if that provides any clarity, but that's where I'm at. And maybe I'm just doing it completely wrong. I don't know.
No, I was thinking about that too, just processing my mind. So somebody else, because like so there's the set variable action that you can use instead of a no-op action, which instead of putting it into a data alias at the bottom, it would just work like a regular action, and you would set the text inside of the parameter, and then that shows up in your results when you publish it. That's one. And then when you publish it, you can see it in your Ginger editor and stuff too. That's one thing. But if it's like you're doing like a with items or something, then
yeah.
Like that's what you're doing, yeah.
Yeah,
I would probably try. I'd probably try and like set it up like a sub workflow, and have the results for each one come back up, unless it's somebody else wants to chime in and say I'm just doing this horribly wrong. But that would then show you the results from each one, and then you would collect those values at the end. And I think there's also an action there. If you wanted to like, or if anybody else wanted to chime in, I can also try to pull up something. But if you have something up that you wanted to look at, we could look at it.
You mean like share my screen?
Yeah, or I can try and pull up a basic one here too on my side.
Yeah. Let's see. I could share my screen.
Okay.
I am on a ultra wide, so I don't know if that.
I've got a zoom button here.
Okay, sweet.
You're good.
Yeah, so super basic, but basically I'm accepting like a JSON payload from a webhook, and then I'm trying to essentially loop through certain like phases. And so like it's, the loop's working, it's just I can't really see anything. And I was just like wanting to get a better understanding of like, yeah.
Try using go back to the workflow. Guys, do you think that he will be solved with a set variable here if he replaces it? Thumbs up if yes. Try dragging that set variable on. I don't know if that's going to work.
I didn't even know that existed, but that's cool.
I think sub workflow might be your answer in the long run, but if it's going to do what you're doing here, then
yeah, and it will likely be connecting to sub workflows. I'm just trying to kind of like build out the wireframe and just like see how the data flows. But yeah, so
the benefit of this action is that anything that you put in that variable contents there, it will actually get printed in those results. Not like the way like the Noop doesn't. At me, I'm trying so hard.
Yeah. So if I go like this, it technically should print the name of like the name object or the name value of the item that it's looping through.
Yeah, just put it, exactly what and then you would set your with items on the advanced the same way.
Gotcha.
Just copy it over there.
Through here or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you would just configure the action the same way that you have it configured. And then just
okay.
The data would show up in the data alias instead of there.
Oh, gotcha. So you're saying like instead of this loop step, do the set variable step.
Yep.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. Because I was trying to do like the on success, and I had a data alias here, but then it just kept erroring. So, but if it's gonna work with like the set variable, then that sounds good to me.
Yeah, give it a shot and then jump in Discord otherwise, because I think that there's some other options for you there.
Awesome. I appreciate the help.
Yeah. We've got 6 minutes left if anyone else has any questions. Oh yeah, it's just items. Sorry, I didn't see the CTX there. Yeah, just items. There you go. Anyone else have any questions? Always try to do that, like, read that thing about like give the 6 or 7 uncomfortable seconds, but they're uncomfortable to me, so I don't know how to.
Isn't it 12 uncomfortable seconds? Well, since we only have like 5 minutes left, I already asked it in chat, but I'm going to ask it again anyway. So anyone that is still want to talk can chime in. Currently, actually today and yesterday, Lime Networks is moving offices. My MSP is going to a much bigger office. What office automation would you put in place if you had the chance? Like, of course, everyone immediately goes to like stuff like, oh yeah, control your lights. I already thought of that. What would you do if today you're moving offices and you could automate something for the office? I
have a suggestion.
Oh, Dan,
for you, Calvin. So you could automate your security system with Roombas with knives taped to them. I think that would be pretty cool. It would serve 2 purposes. If an intruder breaks in, then the Roombas can attack the intruder, and then also it can clean. So you automate 2 things, security and cleaning.
Oh my god, Roombas with knives. That actually sounds really cool. I want that.
I was going to ask, is like severance an option? You know, just shut ourselves off as we walk into a building and.
Oh my god, I saw someone
only
else
if unification is also an option.
Someone had a very cool suggestion, like making the cameras pass their information through an LLM and then saying like who it was based on a uniform or a logo on their shirt or that kind of stuff, like a UPS delivery guy, or oh, the
That
electrician
damn bird
came
again.
over. That was, or that damn bird again, exactly.
Those are actually some of the funniest pictures that you see, like that look like album covers, like the birds just shoving their face in front of cameras.
Oh my God, Jeremy Engelman just made the perfect one. Make a measured amount of coffee on a schedule based of people's trends, which is actually pretty cool because we have a coffee machine that actually has connectivity, so we could do that. There's some really cool suggestions in the chat. One of them being the lights. Trey just recommended some lights for the doors. We actually have those, so that you can see if a room is taken or not. Ooh. Andrew, that's the WMF 5000. I'll send you a link.
I was just sharing this prompt. We're about time now. I'll share it in the, if you guys are in Discord, I'll share the prompt in a Discord thread because there's a few files it has as well, but Andrew just asked for the Ginger Ninja prompt. And actually there's, I've been playing with the OpenAI assistant APIs a bunch. And one of the really cool things that it can do is, like with the files, it can actually do the vector stores with your files automatically. And so I've been playing with that as well. And so I actually had already pulled out the prompt to like convert it over there. So I'll get that posted in Discord for anybody who wants it. With that, I guess like a bunch of you have a long weekend. For those of you who do, enjoy. For those of you who don't, I will be working on Monday too, so solidarity. Otherwise, I will see y'all next week.
Meow.